Hello, I'm Adrian, and the position that I seem to have found for myself on YouTube, not through any particular plan or design I have to say, is that I'm the guy you come to when you want lessons on more obscure guitar players and guitar music. But that's not to say that I don't enjoy the more mainstream stuff as well. And in fact, I very much enjoy occasionally looking at a guitar classic. So that's what I thought I would do today. And they don't come much more classic than Scotty Moore's playing on Elvis's That's All Right Mama. It is a masterclass in rock and roll or rockabilly guitar. And it also contains one of the great guitar solos of all time. So I've taught and I've played this song many times over the years, but what I wanted to do for this video was to re-examine it a little bit, and this involved some careful listening to the original recording and also checking out some of the other recordings, in particular the amazing 68 comeback special performance, and there were a couple of other good live performances that I could find. And what I thought I would do, rather than do a note for note lesson based on the original recording, which was my first thought, and you actually listen to the original recording and it's a little bit quirky in places and it's actually quite hard to hear exactly what Scotty is doing. So I thought what might be best was to combine the best bits of that original recording with some of the other bits that you can hear in the comeback special performance, where it's a little bit clearer what's going on the guitar, and also from the other live performances that I could find. So the idea is that I'm going to give you a authentic but a learnable and a playable version of this song. There's actually a tantalizing video elsewhere on YouTube called something like Scotty Moore teaches you how to play That's All Right Mama, and I clicked on that right away, and there was actually a very interesting interview with Scotty Moore, and then just as you think he's about to pick up his big Gibson archtop and take you through That's All Right in extreme close-up, it cuts to somebody else entirely teaching you the song. So I was a little bit disappointed by that, but anyway, this is my take on That's All Right Mama. So this isn't the first time I've talked about Scotty Moore on this channel. A couple of years ago I remember I did a lesson on Mystery Train, which in some ways is quite similar to That's All Right Mama, and I remember I played that song using a flat pick and the fingers of my picking hand. Today I'm using a thumb pick and the fingers of my picking hand, and I guess that's in the interests of authenticity, because I think that's how Scotty Moore himself plays. He uses the thumb pick and fingers approach. Which approach you use to playing this song is really up to you. You're going to have to use some kind of fingerstyle approach here, whether it's just the bare flesh, thumb and fingers of your picking hand, whether you use a thumb pick or whether you use a pick and fingers. All of those will work for this song. As I say, I'm just challenging myself to use a thumb pick here just because it's the way that Scotty does it. I have to admit that I'm not totally comfortable with a thumb pick. It's something I'm still getting used to. I'm getting a lot better with it. I think if I'd have attempted to play this song with a thumb pick a couple of years ago, I'm not sure I could have really done it much justice, but I am just about able to pull it off with a thumb pick these days. So to the song itself then, the first thing you hear is Elvis's strummed acoustic part, and he comes in with something like this. He's holding down an A chord, something like that. The song is in the key of A. It's based around the 1, 4, 5 chords in that key, so an A, a D and an E. And what Elvis is doing, he's holding down the A chord, he's playing the A string, and then he's strumming the higher strings, then he's playing the low E string, and then strumming the high strings some more to set up that kind of rhythm. And you can, if you want to, play the entire song through like that using Elvis's guitar part. I think if you're a beginner, that would be a good way to be able to play this song. He's just doing a similar kind of strumming pattern on the A, and then on the D, E. That will work well, I think. For this video though, I'm going to be focusing on the Scotty Moore guitar part. So let's get stuck into that. And the first thing you hear is the verse of the song. It goes like this. We've got something like that. So we're starting off on this A chord here, and the fingering that Scotty is using for this A chord, we've got the open A string, then we've got the 7th fret on the D, 6 on the G, and then we're playing the 5th fret on the top 2 strings. I'm just barring that with my index finger. So that's our A chord there, and he's sometimes just adding in the 7th fret on the B string. That's an F sharp note, which turns this chord into an A6. And we've also, occasionally you can hear the low E, open E bass note as well. Now the rhythm pattern that he sets up goes like this. And it's the typical Scotty Moore where you've got the bass played with the thumb or with the thumb pick or with the flat pick, and then you've got some melodic notes played on the higher strings with the finger. So I'm just going to split that up into the bass notes and then the treble notes, so that the bass part is going something like this. And this is really something that you can hear on the comeback special performance. You can't really hear this stuff so clearly on the original recording. Whether it's there or not, I'm not exactly sure, but I think it makes sense. It certainly sounds good to have that steady thumb going all the way through this. So what I'm doing, I'm holding down that A chord shape. I'm playing the A string, then the D string, and then the low E string, and then the D string again. And it makes sense, I think, to try and do a little bit of palm muting. I think that makes it sound better. So I'm just resting the side of my picking hand on the lowest few strings down near the bridge of my guitar. Now if we add in some higher notes, I'm going to be playing this A note here at the 5th fret on the top string, and then I'm going to be playing the 7th fret on the B string as well. So, and those notes are falling on beat 2 and on the and of 3. So we've got this kind of rhythm: 1, 2, 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3 and 4. Something like that. Now I'm not going to go into too much detail on this particular style and technique in this lesson, but I have done a detailed video on this style of rockabilly rhythm, and you might want to check that out if you're struggling to get any of this stuff together. I go into this stuff in quite a lot of detail. So that's the opening bar of the verse, and then we've got this lovely little melodic phrase played a little bit higher up the neck, and this is all based off of this little 3-note A triad. It's a D shape A triad. So I'm holding down the 9th fret on the G, 10th fret on the B, and 9th fret on the high E. That's an A triad, and I'm strumming that 3 times. Then I'm stretching up with my little finger to play the 12th fret on the top string, and then I'm releasing that back to the triad shape. What I'm doing with my picking hand, I think this is what Scotty Moore does. There's a one shot in the comeback special where you can see him brushing those higher strings, I think with his index finger or his middle finger. So that's how I'm trying to do it here. And I'm just playing that triad shape, down, up, down with my index finger. And then up, I'm putting my little finger down, and then up again, I'm releasing my little finger. And I don't think you need to be too fussy about this. Sometimes you can just hear a single note come through. Other times there's 2 strings or 3 strings coming through. So don't need to be too fussy. You can brush it with your index finger. If you're playing with a pick, you could strum it with a pick. I think just experiment with that. And one thing I would say generally with this tune is you don't need to get too hung up on being really precise. It's easy with this kind of alternating bass and finger stuff to get to go for perfection, which I don't think you really hear in Scotty Moore's style. He's a much more raw guitar player, unlike somebody like Chet Atkins, who superficially is doing some of the same stuff, but I think Chet Atkins is a much more precise player, whereas Scotty Moore just goes more for the vibe and for the rawness. So back to this opening phrase. If I put all of that together, we've so far got this. And that repeats again, and this time we stay up on this A triad and we're just strumming it in an 8th note rhythm. It's got 2 bars worth of that, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're heading up to the 4 chord, and the 4 chord that Scotty is using is this D9 shape. And if you don't know this, we've got the root note, 5th fret on the 5th string, then we're playing the 4th fret on the 4th string, and then the 5th fret on the top 3 strings. And the best way to play those notes, I think, is just to flatten down your 3rd finger over all 3 of those notes. That's a D9, and once again Scotty is falling into this kind of rockabilly rhythm pattern. Here you've got that alternating bass. What I'm doing is just playing the 5th string, the 4th string, then the 6th string and the 4th string. And I don't think Scotty is necessarily that precise with this. Sometimes he might be doing the 5th string and the 4th string, sometimes just a single note. You can experiment with that and mix it up a little bit. Now let's add in the higher notes here. And that's the pattern that I've got written down in my tab. It might not be exactly like I played it at the start of this video actually. You find once you get a feel for this particular style, you're able to mix it up a little bit and vary it as you go along. But this is what's written in my tab. We've got 2 melody notes here. We've got an A on the top string and an E on the 2nd string. So we've got the A on beat 2, 1, 2, 3 and 4. And we've got the E note on the and of 3. That's falling in between the thumb strokes. So we've got 1, 2, 3 and 4. And then in the 2nd bar of this pattern, it's a 2-bar pattern. We've got the A on beat 1 and the E on the and of 1. Another A on the and of 2 and another E on the and of 3. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Put all of that together and we've got our 2-bar pattern. Then we hit the 5 chord and we're coming down to the open position. And we're playing an E7 chord here, so it's an open E, but you're putting down your little finger on the D note here. It's 3rd fret on the B string. That's the flat 7, and the pattern you can hear goes like this. So the bass is now going between the 6th string and the 4th string. And the top line part, we've got an open E on beat 2, and we've got this D note on the and of 3. So it's 1, 2, 3 and 4. Then in the 2nd bar of this pattern, we've got the E on beat 1, open high E, a D on the and of 2, and then another E on the and of 3. So it's 1, 2 and 3 and 4. So the entire 2-bar pattern. Playing that whole pattern twice. I think I just sometimes throw in a little hammer on with the 1st finger, open G to the 1st fret on the G string. That's quite nice. Then we're back up to the 1 chord. Just like at the start of the verse. Let's check out the solo then, and that kicks off with this phrase. Lovely little phrase just involving diatonic thirds in the key of A, and we're just leading into it with some bass notes. We've got the open low E, and then F sharp, G sharp, and the open A. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're hitting this first double stop here. This is 6 on the G, 5 on the B, moving that shape 2 frets lower, and then we're going to the 7 on the D and 6 on the G. It's an A and a C sharp. You could play those same notes down here on the B and the G strings if you wanted to. Amounts to the same thing. And I think I prefer to play them up here around that A chord shape. So we've got, and then we're going back to this shape and sliding up to the first shape. So it's 1, 2, 3. And we're just playing that again, connecting it with those bass notes again. So 2, 3, 4, 1. Playing that 3 times, then we've got this phrase. Really nice little phrase, mostly based on the A major scale here, I think. We're playing this F sharp note, 7th fret on the B string, and we're just giving it a little bend. It's just a 1 fret bend, just up and down, and that's really bending the 6th up to the flat 7, a really nice bend. Then we're coming down the A major scale. We've got E, D, C sharp to B, and then onto the D string. It's 7, 6, 5. Just a little chromatic run of notes there from 7 to 5. So that's the first part of the solo. That's all played over the A chord. Then we're hitting the 4 chord, and Scotty just falls into the same rhythm pattern really that he plays in the verse. 4 bars worth of that. I'm playing that exactly the same way as I did in the verse. Then we hit the 5 chord, and that's mostly the same as in the verse as well. I think the difference here is that certainly on the original recording, I think on the comeback special as well, you can actually hear this note played on top. It's the G note on the top string there, so it's that kind of sharp 9 sound, which is nice. So the pattern that Scotty does on the 5 chord in the solo is something like this. Like so, and you can just give that 3rd fret note a little bit of a bend as well if you wanted to. So it's, and then we're back to the 1 chord. Like so, and that's really about it. I think it goes around for one more verse and then a little ending section, all very much the same as before, but just with some slight variations. I don't think Scotty ever plays the same thing twice in exactly the same way. So I suggest you just listen carefully to the recording or to the recordings, get a feel for it, and then do it in your own way. Allow me to briefly talk you through the gear that I'm using to make this video. I'm afraid I'm not able to be particularly authentic today. I'm really just making do with the gear that I've got. And I think that's important really. Don't get too hung up on gear. You can really play any kind of music with any type of guitar and amp if you use your ears and dial things in carefully. And Scotty Moore, I think, used quite an unusual Gibson on this recording, an ES-295, and I don't have anything remotely like that. So I'm using my Telecaster. This is a 90s 52 reissue, and I'm going into a Vox AC30 amp Just using a couple of pedals today. I'm using my trusty Wampler Tumnus, just on quite a low gain setting, and that just warms up the sound, gives it a teeny bit of grit. And then I'm going into my analog delay pedal. That's an Ibanez analog delay, and that's for the rockabilly slapback effect. Though interestingly, I can't actually hear any delay or slapback at all on the original recording. You can hear it on the comeback special, but I think when he first recorded the tune he wasn't yet using that slapback delay effect, but I'm using it anyway because it sounds cool. Well, that's about all I have to say about That's All Right Mama. I hope you enjoy learning to play the song. There will be some detailed music and tab up on my Patreon page. And incidentally, big thank you to all my patrons. It always amazes me that so many of you are prepared to stump up your hard-earned cash to help me continue to make these videos, so that's much appreciated. If you fancy more of this kind of thing, I've done a video which you can find elsewhere on this channel on Elvis's Mystery Train, which is very much in the same kind of vein as this song. And there's also the video I mentioned earlier about Rockabilly Rhythm Essentials, which might be worth checking out. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.